you know, when I first looked at the Brain Wellness Bar, it was about people with anxiety and depression, and I thought that's just not me. I've had a pretty great, but still a lot of trauma in my life, and you know, with a marriage breakdown, and you know, going from you know, having assets and you know, a lot of money to going through a GFC. We lived through the GFC where we were renovating and building at the same time, and you know, lost pretty much everything that we had. And I think since then, having the marriage breakdown and coming into this program, I was sort of thinking, yeah, I'll give it a go. You know, it's, you know, I'm a businesswoman at heart. I've done, you know, started about 6 businesses, from restaurants to finance broking to the blog, what else do we do? A cooking business, a lot of things. And I think over the years, you know, I'm a really hard worker, and I've never stopped working all through my babies. But there was just something there that for some reason I just couldn't crack the code as to why, not that things were failing, but I just was never feeling like I was in abundance. So when I started doing the program, I sort of started a bit like, yeah, I'll give it a go. I'm really open to this sort of stuff. You know, I practice energy, Reiki, and I totally believe in everything to do with the mind and the mind power. And, you know, if I've got a sore throat, I feel like I'm not communicating, so I'll meditate on my throat. That's just how I work. So this was a really interesting concept to me. So I started, as I say, like excited, but just a little bit like, I don't know if I'm worthy really to be here. And as the program went on, I sort of kept coming to these breaks in feeling like, wow, I actually feel like I've been in survival mode for most of my adult life, probably for the last 20 years, because it just kept opening the doors to asking myself questions. And, you know, I'd sit here and talk with Terry or Ryan about my life, and I'd just be like, wow, I have been in survival mode when I would tell this story. And they're like, oh, you know, that's not a great thing. I said, well, why am I repeating the cycle over and over and over again? You know, now I'm a single mum and I work harder than ever, and I still can't quite get past that line. Yeah, so as the program went on, I sort of became more clear as to, open to the fact that I was in survival mode all the time. You know, every decision I make was either in survival or out of fear or out of lack. You know, I'd grasp at things, I'd start new things, I'd start 5 things just in case that one wasn't working. I had to have something working over here. And, you know, obviously with 3 kids as a single mum, you want to be able to provide. But in survival mode, I felt like I was just always getting this far and not where I could envisage myself being. I meditated most days. I, you know, write down my goals. I have visions, you know, a vision board, and I do all the things that you're supposed to do to get yourself to that next level. And I just had never got there. So during the program, it really wasn't until sort of the end of the program that I just started feeling like things had shifted. Like I started feeling less stress about money. And then I looked at my bank account. It's not like anything extra was coming in. I was just looking at things differently. I wasn't looking at it and going, oh my God, what's going to happen? What's going to happen tomorrow in the next week? I've got to pay rent. I was looking, going, oh, that's okay. And then it was a thought, and then I just have started to move on. So it really wasn't until the end of the program, and even now on the monthly maintenance, that I'm starting to really feel like I'm not in survival anymore, like I'm back getting really excited about my work. I'm creating things. I've launched a new website, and I just seem to be in my flow, which is really important to me because, you know, with all the training that I do on intuition and, you know, meditating and Reiki, your life needs to be in flow. And I think even with kids, when I'm always in survival mode, that sort of resonates onto them as well. And I didn't want to pass on that energy to my children. And I honestly feel, you know, with being half, you know, into it in the beginning to where I am now, that I can see a really big change in my mindset and the way that I look at things, and mainly the way I subconsciously react to different situations. And I'm actually thinking that it can only get better if I keep going. That would be lovely. So yeah, that's sort of where I've come from and how I feel about it all. My mum has taught me those things, you know, from a child. I think I picked up a book called The Celestine Prophecy when I was about 13 or 14, and I've read it 4 or 5 times. Eckhart Tolle, I follow him. His book Power of Now is just incredible. And then he's got A New Earth, which is after that. But The Celestine Prophecy, The 10th Insight, all these books that I've read and ingrained in myself for years. I mean, I'm 36 now. I would have started reading them 20 years ago. And, you know, and with my Reiki practice, I'm a Reiki practitioner as well. The documentary Heal was just something that I've known for so long, and just finally seeing people come into consciousness and having these things talked about and being able to come to a brain wellness spa, you know, and talk about, you know, the brain and how it works and all these amazing things that we can do. It's such a really exciting time for someone like me who's like lived these beliefs for so long. I just feel like with everyone coming into consciousness and being able to speak about it without feeling like you're woohoo, you know, it's just a really exciting time. Yeah, especially when documentaries like Heal come out, you know, I loved it. Yeah, so on my first session, I think I fell asleep. I didn't experience a lot other than a beautiful, nice rest. It was lovely. But as progressively for me, I would get visions of things. And I wouldn't so nod off, but I'd sort of feel like my body was floating, and I'd go, you know, I'd just, feel it was, beautiful. Sort of like when I meditate. You're there, but you're not there. And I'd see, you know, birds or lights or things like that. But for the first sort of half, I just fall asleep, and it's just really, really peaceful. Just easy, like you're not doing anything, but going to go have a little kip. Do you know, I think the first thing is it was sort of 3/4 of the way through the program, and I was sitting here talking to Ryan, I think at the time, and he said something to me. It was about, he'd asked me questions about what had been going on and how things that had happened in my life, and something pretty significant, I can't remember what it was, that had happened. And I sort of just told him, and then just sort of moved on and kept talking. And he sort of looked at me, I was like, wow. You know, my old me would have like focused on that and been so drawn down by that, and so, you know, focused and upset with that. But the new me was like, oh, this happened, and then off I went again on something else. And I thought, wow, this is actually working. And that was probably the first time. Yeah, was sitting in a session, pre-session, talking to Ryan about something that had happened that was pretty big in my life, and I just brushed over it and moved on. Yeah, I think it's more for me. For me, I feel like I'm just in my flow now. I don't feel like I'm fighting against anything or for anything. I don't feel like I'm fighting for my next, you know, job or that I have to pay rent or that the kids have got basketball fees that are coming up. Like, I just feel like I'm just in my flow, which is just such a nice place to be. And I think you do get the warning signs when things aren't going right, but you just, I don't know, there's just something that has made you acknowledge it. And you don't move you acknowledge it and move on, but not in the sense that you ignore it. You sort of acknowledge it, and then it doesn't affect you in the way that it did anymore. And you just sort of have a knowing that things are just going to work out.